Dr. Drew Pinsky, the internist and host of HLN's Dr. Drew. Dr. Drew, thank you so much for joining us. It's been, an erratic few days for Donald Trump. It has a lot of people asking what is going on with him. Mayor Michael Bloomberg said at the DNC last week in support of Trump's opponent, Hillary Clinton, even before the events of the last few days. Listen to this.
Let's select a sane, competent person with international experience. The bottom line is Trump is a risky, reckless, and radical choice, and we can't afford to make that choice.
So he's implying that Trump is not sane. Do you agree with that?
Well, listen, we have to look at what is insanity. He can be reckless and risky and not be insane, right? There's two definitions of insanity. One is legal definition, and a legal definition of insanity is somebody who is so out of it they don't know the difference between right and wrong. That is a very high standard for insanity, and very few people meet that standard. You're really not functioning when you're legally insane. Then there's clinically insane, medically. What does that mean? Usually when we talk about insanity, we mean psychotic, hearing voices, having hallucinations. Again, have a thought disorder that disconnects you from reality. So I'm sorry, Don, not insane.
Okay. No apologies necessary. And, it was Bloomberg who made the assertion. If he is, we've spoken about this before. I believe that you think he has narcissist tendencies. Is that always a bad thing in a leader?
No, it isn't always a bad thing. People want to label him with a narcissistic personality disorder, and that is a pretty tough thing to do at a distance. But let me just talk to you. Narcissism generally can be a good thing. I mean, if you're a fighter pilot, we want you to be narcissistic. We want you not to have fear in extreme circumstances. And so most political leaders have some degree of narcissism. That's what motivates them to go into these areas. I mean, we've done research on this, and it bears that out. The question, though, is narcissism has a liability, and that's malignant narcissism, where you lose empathy. Feelings don't matter. Only your sort of point of view is all that matters, at all times. And in that situation, usually you see people who really can't function interpersonally. So you look at their children, their marriages, and you just don't see the evidence of malignant narcissism in his kids, certainly. Now, I'd love to hear from his ex-wives. Maybe they know something that we haven't heard yet, but you just can't conclude it because his relationships are actually maintained and seem to be quite healthy.
I want you to listen to what John Oliver said.
Honestly, the main takeaway from these 2 weeks is that, incredibly, we may be on the brink of electing such a damaged, sociopathic narcissist that the simple presidential duty of comforting the families of fallen soldiers may actually be beyond his capabilities. And I genuinely did not think that that was a part of the job that someone could be bad at.
People throw around a lot of terms about Donald Trump. Is that unfair to call someone who is a nominee for the Republican Party a sociopath?
Yes, it is unfair, because the sociopaths are usually tied up with illegal, really seriously problems with behavior. But, you can be manipulative, you can be narcissistic, and you can still do okay in life. But again, your relationships usually have extreme pathology. It's very difficult to raise healthy kids, very difficult to have sustained marriages if you're deep into narcissism. Though you can have narcissistic features, and there's no doubt that the majority of politicians have exactly that. The question, though, is, are some of the reckless qualities that everyone is getting so disturbed about on the campaign going to be translated into office should he get elected? And that's a pretty hard thing to predict. I don't know if this is just somebody playing politics, or is this somebody who really can't contain their impulses. And by the way, although people want to call it narcissism, people who are like hypomanic and bipolar are the ones that really have much more difficulty with running at the mouth. And you've got to wonder more about that than narcissism.
You said bipolarism, and what else? You manic, would you say?
Well, hypomania. I'm not saying he is hypomanic, but I'm saying everyone wants to label him with all these personality qualities. But, when I hear people that are impulsive with their speech, I always worry about hypomania and bipolar types of conditions. And he has, as he says, he has boundless energy. Again, a little hypomania can be great. There are a lot of hypomanic businessmen that get a ton done. But in terms of containing your speech and being able to be thoughtful and take a beat before you say something, for those people, it can be very, very difficult. So good or bad, the point is, I think people, what's more fascinating to me, Don, is not him, but his supporters that seem to not be concerned about any of this. That to me is fascinating. As always, what is up with us?
Right, the people who are not concerned, who say it doesn't matter if he's telling the truth or not. Let's talk about that. You said not control your speech. Let's talk about the criticism, because you saw Khizr Khan has been doing interviews. He did an interview with me this evening. He said he had no right to question his knowledge of the Constitution. That's what Donald Trump said. No right to question his knowledge of the Constitution. Is that a psychological reason that he is seemingly unable to take criticism?
Well, again, let's just assume that most people that would choose to be in a very high-profile race like this would have narcissistic tendencies. And there's something called sort of narcissistic injury and then narcissistic rage. If you really shame somebody with narcissism, they tend to be sort of Teflon when it comes to shame. They don't like it. And if you shame them, they can react with extreme aggression and extreme rage. So seems to be that kind of a psychological process.
Yeah. The best way, if someone criticizes you and you don't like, just ignore them. That hurts the most.
That's not thinking about how this how Mr. Trump operates or how this political season is going to go. But again, I'm trying to figure out what is it with us that we find that so appealing, and it's something. I have a radio program at KBC, and what I keep hearing from my listeners there is enough is enough. And so if somebody's going to fight back, they're going to say whatever, and I don't care what he says, as long as it's extreme and it's pushing back and he's putting my country and my job first. I'll get behind him no matter what he says. And there's disregard for the content.
So we need to examine ourselves more than Donald Trump needs to examine
listen, why we watch reality television.
Speak for yourself, Dr. Drew.
That's all about us. Why do we do this? Let's examine that.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Drew. I always watch you. I don't watch reality TV, but I do watch Dr. Drew.